Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Marcus Wilcox of the company called Mix for You Concrete Limited. So, Marcus, thank you very much for coming, attending this Business Spotlight interview today. And please tell me, I guess in your own words, what do you do and how long have you been in business for?
Well, this company, Mix for You Concrete, has been in business for just over 5 years. It's a volumetric concrete company, which means the vehicles that we use are mobile batching plants. So we actually turn up on site and make the exact mix that is required with zero wastage. Previous to it, it's called Mix for You Concrete now, but up until last year, it was called Lockley Concrete. Because myself and the business partner formed the company, right. But we've changed the name now that we've myself and my son have bought Ben out of the company. The company was brought about basically because one, we are the only one in this part of Cornwall who provides this type of service. The closest one to us is 40 miles away. And it came out of the fact that when we worked all over the country, we saw these units in operation. And we decided that it was a system we wanted to bring into Cornwall because very often we were waiting for concrete. And there's no better than having your own concrete lorry, and then you're not waiting anymore. So if you like, the business started purely to provide concrete for our own civils construction companies, because my partner at the time, he had a construction company and so did I. So that meant we were masters of our own destiny. But over the 5 years, the business has grown beyond belief. Once people became aware of the zero wastage, the convenience of being able to change the mix strength and the slump of the concrete on site, and it all of a sudden it took off. It mainly took off the minute the country shut during the pandemic, and the reason for that being was that we were the only concrete company open in Cornwall for a period of 6 weeks, because the government didn't actually shut the construction industry, and there were projects in Cornwall for South West Water, Western Power, and people like that, which had to keep going. So we kept going during that pandemic lockdown with all the necessary precautions in place, which resulted in then giving us exposure to people who couldn't get concrete anywhere else. And those customers which started with us at the beginning of lockdown are still our customers today.
Come on. So
to just give you a background on it, so lockdown, the cement that we would use in a month to make the concrete, we would use about 10 ton of cement to make concrete pre-lockdown in 1 month. We now use 160 ton of cement a month.
Wow.
All right. So that then takes, company turnover, 2019 turnover is about 194,000. The turnover now is 1.1 million.
Wow. That is a huge, huge jump. A huge jump. Yeah.
So we've gone from one, the first lorry we bought was quite an old lorry, which it did what it had to do, but it was only for our own use. But then all of a sudden we needed to upgrade that, and we actually upgraded that one, believe it or not, because pre-lockdown, the company with myself and Ben was all bought and paid for and owed nobody nothing, no finances, not a thing. But we decided to invest in a more modern lorry, and we took out a loan the week before lockdown of 65,000.
Right.
Which was okay, but everything was fine. Well, when the government shut the country, my first concern was that I just signed up to £65,000 worth of finance. There was a lot of uncertainty going around, and my first concerns were, how was I going to service that loan at the end of every month? Because it was very there didn't seem to be much support going on for the construction industry. That's why it didn't stop. But as it was, he shut the country on the Friday, and our phones started ringing on the Monday. To do part of that, we actually moved out of our homes, and we got a welfare container here. And myself and my son lived in steel containers for 6 weeks to isolate us away from our families. To make sure that there was going to be no issues, because, I mean, as you're aware, COVID in the first couple of weeks was treated like a snake bite.
Yeah.
And everybody was twitching behind curtains and wondering what was going to happen. I mean, the results, as you know now, as time is ticking on, it wasn't quite what they thought it was. So I'm just shutting the door a minute.
That's okay.
So away we went, and then within a very short period of time, the silo which we had in wasn't big enough, so we had to change the silo, and then we instantly needed to upgrade to another lorry, so we got another lorry. Then we took on another employee. Then we needed what we decided more modern equipment, so we bought a newer lorry. But traded one of them in, so we still had 2 trucks, 2 actual mixing trucks. So we had 2 going, extra employee, bigger silo installed. We then decided to get a concrete pump to actually pump the concrete, because we had lots of customers saying, why don't you invest in a concrete pump? We said, well, you can hire them from somebody else. They did say, well, if you had one, we would pump smaller quantities. The issue we have at the moment is, if you're not pumping a lot of concrete, it's an expensive thing to try and organize separately.
Yeah.
So we invested in a concrete pump. And then I decided to get rid of one of the older lorries. So we've now had 2 brand new lorries, state-of-the-art ones. One was slightly smaller than the other for the narrow lanes of Cornwall. We had the 2 brand new. One's a 2021, one's a 2022. But then we got even busier again. So I went back and I bought the lorry back that I had traded in 4 months previously.
Wow. Wow.
Right. But I was thinking of having a 3rd new one. But you must bear in mind, when I say about having one, you're not buying these vehicles outright. You're talking costs of 190,000. So what you obviously have to do is finance part of it.
Yeah.
I was going to have 3 brand new ones, but that decision was made probably September last year.
Right.
I was convinced that we would still grow, but I wasn't convinced that the country's sustainability would last with the construction industry, because of the uncertainty of the fuel prices, cost of living, and in a minute, something has to give.
It's true.
Right? You know that yourself. I mean, I'm not telling you something you haven't heard. Everything's bouncing in the construction industry at the moment. But I did have a previous construction company, and I remember very well the late 80s, early 90s, when the confidence was lost in the interest rate, the government, and everything else. And the construction industry took a complete hit. and companies weren't surviving, and lots, went bankrupt and went to the wall. So what held me back from having 3 new lorries, basically in a period of 12 months, was I thought, well, we can do it with 2 new ones, and we'll have our old one back, because we knew what we were buying back, because obviously we had had it for over a year, and we had spent a lot on repair and maintenance with it.
Sure.
So we were confident in buying something we knew, because we always had the option of buying another new one. But I'm glad we did what we did, because the finances of the country at the moment and the uncertainty has not changed in the last 6 months.
True.
And I'd probably say there's still a bumpy road to go. So that's where we are with it. But we've managed to keep growing. It's the fact that I've not got confidence that it will be sustainable. We've reduced the risk by spending 60,000 instead of another 190.
Wow. Well, let me ask this way. I mean, obviously, just hearing your story, regards to obviously with COVID-19 had a huge impact. I mean, you saw the rapid growth, but also at the moment, currently in the state of crisis that we're in, there's uncertainty, like you said. So with that as a challenge, so I mean, do you feel that as a challenge, or what challenges are you facing at the moment as a business leader?
Well, we don't have challenges as much, as long as the costs which come into us, the increased cost of cement due to energy prices and the increased fuel prices, which obviously come, and aggregate prices, those prices come on to us. There's no challenge as long as we can send those increased costs on to the customer.
Yes.
Now, we're still doing that at the moment. Now, where we are a lot different than most concrete companies, if you know about concrete, is basically they turn up with a drum lorry and a driver, and all they do actually is supply the concrete.
Yes.
That's it. The man stands at the back, pulls the lever, and spits it on the floor.
Yes.
Now, because of our civils experience of me being in the industry since I was 16, and I'm 63 now, the construction work that we were involved in before we got into the concrete was that I would travel all over the country installing industrial effluent plants and sewage treatment plants and various other structures. So what we have done is we have wound that side of the business back a little bit. So I don't travel away anymore, or my son. We basically stay local. We do some civils projects, as in, I don't know if you know about the incinerator plant in Cornwall. We basically look after any civils type concrete works or anything they need doing up there.
Yep.
And I also do some works at Newquay Airport, mainly to do with the fire hydrant system. But all that has been based on my previous experience, so that's why we get called in to do it. But how it changed from Lockley Concrete to Mix for You was because my business partner, who I've known for 20 years, he's 20 years younger than me. As the business grew, Ben, who didn't have any involvement in it at all, in the concrete company, said, well, to be honest with you, Marcus, this company has nothing to do with me. Yes, we started it together, but you've done all the work and you've grown the company, and this is yours and your son's company, and would you like to buy me out? So it's at that point last year that it changed from Lockley Concrete to Mix for You Concrete.
Right.
Ben, we're still friends. He still has an office above me here now in our yard, but he said, oh, you take it to the next level. So that's what we did.
Come on.
We also had at the time another system I don't know if you've ever heard of, but I introduced a company into Cornwall called Vacuum Excavation Southwest. So vacuum excavation is the principle of where you suck out all the material around the services, as opposed to digging it with a pick and shovel.
Yes.
Right. So I, once again, working away, I had seen that. I looked at it 20 years ago, but I didn't actually do anything about it. So I'd set up Vacuum Excavation Southwest, knowing that that system would grow, which it has tremendously now throughout the country. But I got to the stage last year where I needed to make the decision, because I now got two companies. One is growing rapidly, the other one will grow, but I want to finance one or the other. So what we did was we actually sold the vacuum excavation company. We sold the machines from it, and the company itself, the actual name, I sold to Europe's biggest vacuum company. They bought the name and the business, which then obviously released the capital to invest more into the Mix for You side.
Very clever, very clever. I love that.
Vacuum excavation is growing. I introduced the likes of Cornwall Council, Champion Groundworks, MJL Groundworks. I introduced loads of companies in Cornwall into the benefits of vacuum excavation. It's a very expensive, well, it is an expensive process, but it's not expensive as hitting a gas main or fiber optics.
Yeah.
It was a lot of knocking on doors. We did get there. We got there in the end. You know, they were always used to just carefully digging around it, but their men aren't carefully digging these days. So you get all sorts of health and safety issues when they burst a water main or fiber optics or gas or electric or anything like that. But it took a lot of beating on the doors, but we got there in the end. So we got there in the end to the point of the really big machines. I didn't have big machines. I used to hire in the very big ones from up country if I needed them. But all that banging on doors was worthwhile, because those large companies now have actually gone off and bought their own vacuum excavators at nearly £500,000 a piece.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So my thoughts on how all that would happen has done exactly what it is. But I had a choice of for me to grow the vacuum company again, I would need to invest in a very large machine.
Yeah.
So one of those is £500,000, but for the same money, I managed to get two volumetric concrete trucks, a concrete pump, and a silo. So I've got 4 pieces of kit instead of one.
Great.
You see?
I see. Wow. Well, I would say, Marcus, just hearing your journey is hearing where you were, pre-COVID and where you are now. It's an incredible journey. And I will say thank you very much.